This story happened when I was like 27 or something. So, I had dreadlocks, and I had probably wearing some Oshkosh by gosh overalls with one strap off. And 27, man. Anything's possible. I could be president. That's what I thought back then.
Hello and welcome to the Nutshell True Story Hour, a podcast for people who love stories. My name is Carnes, and I'm an author and one of the creators of In a Nutshell Storytelling, a monthly storytelling show in Sacramento, California. My co-creators are the world-class comedian Lowell Jensen and Amy B., a storyteller and the person who pretty much runs this whole shindig. Every episode, we share with you one of our favorite stories told live at our show, followed by a conversation with the storyteller about how that story came to be. This week, comedian, storyteller, and Chico resident DNA tells us a political story which details moments during his 5 attempts to run for mayor of Chico. The theme that night was It's a Beautiful Day, and for DNA, running for mayor ends up sounding a bit more like a series of pranks and publicity stunts than a serious political campaign. But he's making a point about our political system. And within this story, there's a message. If you don't like our current government, run for office and be the government you want to see. Our interview after takes a deep philosophical direction. Plus, we had the pleasure of talking to DNA outside at a Starbucks in Chico, so you can hear the sounds of Chico as we chat. Now let's listen to DNA's story.
Have you ever had the misfortune of running into a family member or a friend or a stranger who in the course of conversation would say, I don't mean to get political, but... And then it's just like an unsolicited TED Talk, you know what I mean? Like just filled half-truths and like misunderstood disinformation. And well, tonight, I mean to get political because this is a political story. And not to bury the lead, but I ran for mayor of Chico, California 5 times. And so this is about that. And we'll get there. But I would be remiss if I did not address the political situation we're in a political story. So I'm going to do this story kind of in reverse. So we'll start here, and then we'll go there. Unfortunately, I'm not an expert on anything. You know, I'm not like a geopolitical expert. I'm not a scholar on our own nation's history. Everything I could say about what's happening would be in my opinion, and that is probably similar to your opinions. And so I will just be transparent and tell you that the way I get through what's happening in our political climate right now is I disassociate. That's been my number one saving thing. And give it up for disassociation. It'll get you through. And so one of the things I envision is that I'm on a bus. I'm on a luxury bus. And the bus is very comfortable and safe. And it's driving 99 miles an hour down a highway through a dystopian world. And things are flying by the window. There goes Social Security, there go the arts, there goes 401k, there goes the Constitution, there goes Palestine, there goes Big Bird. And I try not to obsess on those things and pull the emergency brake and get off the bus because it never really pans out and I never actually am effective doing anything. I just feel worse. And it feels overwhelming. But when I ran my first campaign in 1990 in Chico for mayor, I was still on that bus, but it was different things going by. It was the Persian Gulf War, 200,000 people dead. George W. Bush was in, his dad was in for the 8 years previous. That guy was the head of the CIA. You know, there was a pogrom in Azerbaijan where the Azerbaijanians went insane and went after the Armenians. So different, but just the same kind of feeling that we have now. I had then as a much younger dude. And I felt like civic duty, 1990. I was kind of, just out of graduate school, and I was like, I'm going to run for mayor. I learned things the first campaign. One thing I learned is you can't run for mayor in Chico, California, and I learned that from every city council member that said you cannot run for mayor, you can only run for city council. When the city council members get elected, they go into a room, close the door, a star chamber, and then they pick who the mayor is. Second thing I learned is you could do whatever you want. There's no ramifications. No one edits you. You can get up there and give bold-faced lies. You can get up there and deny obvious truths. There's no one actually over your shoulder telling you what you can and you can't do. So it was DNA for mayor. I had it on all the shirts. The next thing I learned was that you had to get signatures. It starts with signatures, okay, if you run for an office. And I just had to stand outside a natural food store and get annoy people. That was already my skill set, so I was just out there getting signatures. Because you can just announce that you're going to run for an office. You could just stand up right now and be like, I'm running for president. You might get a grassroots movement behind you. But until you get the signatures, you'll never be on the ballot. You'll only be a write-in. I didn't want to go that way. I wanted to be more effective. So I got the signatures and I got on the ballot. One of the things about the ballot is underneath the name on the ballot, you had 3 spaces where you could put 3 professions to let people know who you are, or you could put, your religious beliefs, or any 3 words. You could really pick any 3 words. And so I went with impresario because I had read that word somewhere. I thought it sounded pretty good. I went with philosopher because I was just out of grad school, and of course I am. And I put scientist because this was a big experiment. And then what I found out was that once I was on the ballot and I was an actual candidate, I would get invited to parties. I would get invited to soirees, backyard get-togethers. Chico, so it's like, pale ale and hot dogs. But, still, and I'm vegan, so anyway, but I did drink back then. And then they would ask us questions. And the next thing I learned is not only that, TV, radio, newspapers, they'll talk to you. They want to talk to all the candidates. So now I found myself kind of on a political forum, and I did not really have a platform. So I started paying more attention to the people I was around. And here are 3 really disturbing things I found just about a city council campaign. 1, super mean, really mean. And I was, context, I had dreadlocks, I was wearing Guatemalan clothing, Birkenstocks, and red, yellow, and green socks, okay? I was not to be taken seriously, and my name was DNA. So the whole thing, I was discounted. And people ask about the DNA name, and I'll just run this by you, because I know you're wondering, like, why? It's a thing. It's a stopping block between you trusting this story, I believe. So I'll tell you real quick, and it's sad, so get ready. But so before I was 30 years old, I lost all my grandparents, my parents, my brother, and every single one of my aunts and uncles, except Aunt Dot, who lived to be 105. And my dad died when I was 23. A couple years later, my mom died, and I was in the hospital with her for the last 3 weeks of her life. And again, I'm 27, the dreadlocks, you picture the whole thing. I'm not a guy who should be making big decisions about names, but I was like, Mom, I do not want to be called by the name you call me, because it was terminal. And she gave, look, transparency, I tricked her. I've never admitted this, but that is what happened, because I knew what I wanted. I wanted to be called DNA, and I said to her, Mom, I'm going to change my name. I'm thinking about changing it back to like our old Russian name, and that just brought up bad memory. And she's like, no, anything but that. I'm like, how about DNA? She's like, okay. She was also on morphine, so what I did was I was in Jersey. I came back to Chico. I went to Blockbuster, okay? Blockbuster was giving out picture IDs. So I said DNA, picture ID. I took that to the post office. Post office gave me a post office box, mailed stuff to myself as DNA. Now I took those letters and my receipt in the Blockbuster card to the DMV. The DMV said, okie dokie, here's your California driver's license DNA. I took that to the bank. Now I was able to be paid as DNA. Then I took all that and registered to vote. And then I ran for city council 5 times as DNA, and it's all totally legal. As long as that last Blockbuster doesn't close. You know, that's the only... They were mean. They were really mean. They were super mean. It was like everything seems more and more like high school these days, you know, if the personalities and the archetypes, you know, we know these people, and they're just being mean, and so I didn't like that, and then I did not like that someone would spend $20,000 in 1990 money and lose. And they would lose. They would lose the campaign. They'd spend all, and their whole thing is like, Rachel, fiscally responsible. Like, no, you're not, Rachel. You just wasted $20,000 on a campaign. I thought it was such a waste. And then the third thing I saw that really bothered me was even at that city council level, the lobbying that went on between, real estate developers. I'm sorry to insult anybody's profession here. My dad was an appraiser. But it's like real estate developers who wanted to expand outside on the perimeter of Chico or move the green belt, they would pay the candidates a lot of money who would parrot what they want. So I ran the first campaign on campaign finance reform. That was one of my issues because I was like, I'm going to run my campaign on $100. I said, if I can run a campaign on $100, I can run this whole city, you know? So, and it became very Amish. People would come over, we'd buy paint, we'd get spray paint, we would make signs. My signs said, fight evil, vote DNA. And then we would put them on the highway. And then we got the idea if we dressed them in little kids' clothes and put an alien head on it, people really noticed. We would do projections on the side of buildings when all the college kids were out drinking. I mean, we got super creative. And being creative is what I want in a politician. Not as creative as the guy we have right now. That's too creative. there's a line. And he crossed it. It culminated in 2000. 2000, a lot of people remember, is the time of the dangling Chad. Okay, it was in Broward County. The southerly gentleman, Al Gore, walked away. What's that about? The state was run by the brother of... Okay, look, it wasn't a good time. But what people forget is, I believe, in my opinion, it was the most powerful third-party movement we've had in my lifetime, which was the Green Party and Ralph Nader. And I believe Ralph Nader's a good person. I believe he has good ideas, and he has the personality of a rock. That was a little bit of a sticking point. But I went to this nascent Green Party. I had been Democrat down the line. I called my party the Party Party, but I was a Democrat down the line. But in 2000, I went to the Green Party and said, I'll be your candidate. And they were like, this is great. We're a new party. We have a candidate running for mayor. And we got Ralph Nader to stop in Chico as his last stop on the tour, and CBS was there. It was a huge deal, and the Green Party's so happy with me. And then I put on an event called Nudes for Nader. Because my brain was still like, we need attention, we're a third party, we don't have the money. Nudes for Nader, and I sent to all the press in the whole region. I also said, free pizza. And so we had about 2,000 people in the park because the band was the Mother Hips. And so we had all these nudists on stage. Signs said Nudes for Nader. That was an international story. The head of the Green Party came to me on my porch in Chico and was like, you can't be in the Green Party anymore. I was like, you've been the headline for days. She's like, that's not what we're about. I'm like, nudity? I mean, why is that? I mean, why? Okay, yes, I'm working out some trauma tonight, so thank you. Thank you for that. And so, what then? We get back on the disassociative bus, and we come back to the present. We feel so unempowered that we can't make effective change. And I'm telling you, you can. I didn't know I was changing lives when I ran, but I was giving people who didn't have a voice. And whatever people are your people, they're going to feel a voice if you run. And, see something, say something. that had its time, the past. We're in see something, do something. Everybody has to do something. That's the only way we're going to get through this. And so I basically gave you a simple tutorial of how it is to try to run for office. It's not that complicated. You can do it. You can get the signatures. You can get on the ballot. And then all of a sudden you have media coming to you for your voice. And we can get out there, and also, so important, school boards, sanitation and water districts, libraries. You need to do something. I hope this story was interesting and a little inspirational. And I appreciate you guys coming out for storytelling. I really enjoyed this very much. And my name's DNA. Thank you very much.
When you did this story at our show, I remember after you finished talking to you backstage, and you made a comment about how, you thought it went well, but you were hoping the audience were going to all kind of be more visibly inspired, like stand up and say, I will run for office.
Huh, I said
that. Do you remember that?
I was disassociating. So at that point, hi. I have no confidence. And so every time, usually before I walk on stage, no matter what I'm doing, I'm just super angry and hate everybody in the audience.
Yeah.
And then when I walk off stage, I just hate myself.
Oh, transference.
For 40 years, probably longer.
You moved me, and I felt like the audience was moved. I could feel like the energy. I felt like people were taking you in and considering.
I think maybe when I came in later for Karen Babbitt's, I saw in the audience was my buddy Yuba he was a DJ Trip. He was the DJ at the Blue Lagoon for 15 years while I was there.
Yeah,
he does the music for this podcast.
Yuba Trip does?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
I didn't know he had a Blue Lagoon connection.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
Weird, yeah.
Me and him, because he hit the disco night and comedy would overlap. And this is back when it was popping. This is back when we had, Brendan Lynch and Phil Griffiths was coming up. Me and Dave was coming up. Emily Catalano, Chad Opitz. Like our shows were fire. And
Lowell Jensen.
Jensen.
Heavy hitters.
Johnny Taylor Jr. It was packed. And then I'd have to go to him and go, hey, could you not start the disco yet? And he'd be like, 3 minutes. For a decade, we did that. Yeah, we negotiated that dance. That's cool. Yeah, no, so it was cool to see a friend in the audience. I like that. And then I was very nervous for Karen.
You were?
Yeah, once I got my thing done,
well, you
concerned.
brought Karen to us.
Yeah.
And just a real quick background for our listeners. Your involvement in comedy is not just as a comedian. You are a producer. You put on comedy festivals, and you really kind of sponsor a lot of comedians. And I feel like is sponsor the right word? I mean, I feel like Karen...
Sponsor makes me think of AA, but, but
you help people quit being not funny.
I find comedians wrapped in amber. And I'm like, you were a comic? Like, let's thaw out. Let's get back. Fred Reeves, who passed, but I love that guy.
So you were very invested in Karen.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. I remember, I remember talking with you. I think it was at the Shane Moss show, the Backyard show, where you also played. And you said that Karen is got stories that people wouldn't believe. Like comedy stories and that.
Yeah, she did the one she just did. She got invited by Pauly Shore to do a Legends thing at the Comedy Store, and she told the story. The legend. I'm just going to spill it because I want your podcast to do well. But there's a legend in the Comedy Store that Sam Kinison came there one night with a gun ready to kill somebody.
Whoa!
And that person was Karen Babbitt.
Oh, what? Oh, that makes me like her so much better.
Yeah,
I mean, I already loved her.
She's a tough broad.
Now I'm just her biggest fan.
We're gonna need her.
Me too.
Yeah, we're gonna need her to tell that story.
Yeah, and her stories, the more we listen to it each time, we just fell more in love with her.
Yeah, she's a crafts person with her storytelling. She puts it together like a Swiss watch.
Yeah.
I don't. I shoot from the hip.
Well, I'm listening to
well, wait a minute. So what does that mean, you shoot from the hip? So, I mean, you had notes up there.
I had never I had only told the story about my name one time before when I recorded my album in May.
Right.
And then I never put all those pieces together.
Wait, so you recorded a joke on your album that you had never told before the night you recorded your album?
Yeah, it's a story about
That's awesome.
me getting the DNA name. But on the album, you could hear my voice crack.
Yeah,
I got a little emotional.
I want to ask you one question about the name.
Yeah.
You already explained, that you wanted to change it. Is there any significance to the name DNA?
Yeah. You want to know what it is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so like 1988 or so, I just moved here. I went to grad school through 86, 87. I moved in August to Chico. And then at the Top Flight bar downtown, there was comedy night on Sunday nights. And my friend Samantha Perry, her family owned it. And I would see Earthquake, I would see Tree, I would see all the big one-name comedians at the time, and I saw Will Durst. And Will Durst, the guy before Will Durst, the feature did like dog farts, but really, man, it was brilliant. And the crowd goes nuts. And then Will comes out with his, whatever, homage to Mort Saul or something. He has his newspaper, and he gets into it, and crickets. And I had never seen this. I never seen someone on stage, crickets, like combative. And then he's like, 45 more minutes. And I'm like, how could he pop? And I pulled my chair. It's the most fascinating thing I'd ever seen. He didn't really win him over. He did his time. I'm like, that was the bravest thing I'd ever seen. So then a couple of months later,
I need to real
89.
quickly add that I'm a huge Will Durst fan, and he's fucking brilliant. Okay, go ahead.
A couple of months later at Chico State is the Showtime College Comedy Laugh-Off. And I heard Will Durst was going to be the host, right? So I want to go see Will again.
Hoping he'll bomb again.
I don't know I didn't get it. You know what I mean? In the town that I grew up in, there was a comedy club. As the last year or so I was leaving, and I did get to see like early Stephen Wright and, early, what's that guy? He has a documentary coming out, Bob Nelson, and Harry Anderson. I don't know. There was a lot of great stuff there, but and I went to New York City and would see Saturday Night Live a couple times. So I liked comedy, but I'd never seen the fearlessness of a guy just bombing for 45 minutes. Like, how could you do? Like, it made, and like when I see someone like scale a mountain, I'm like, I can't do that. But when I saw someone bomb for 45 minutes, I'm like, I could do that. That's my wheelhouse. So I went to the BMU at Chico State. Saturday night, 800 kids, oversold, people going bananas. And it was $3 to get in. I didn't have $3. They said, if you enter the contest, you can get in for free. I said, okay. I was also on Grateful Dead tour that year. There was Goonie Bird Acid. It was really good. And so I was doing that. So I'm tripping nuts and I'm backstage. And I'm like, what am I going to say? What am I doing? Why am I? And I was like, I'd flashed earlier on Dead Tour that my initials were DNA. Mm-hmm. And so then I went up to Will and I said, introduce me as DNA. So that was the origin. And then I won the competition.
Hey.
You won the okay.
My first time on stage.
Your first time on stage while on acid.
Yeah.
And you won.
89. Yeah.
Holy shit.
And then I stopped until I started again, like 20 years later.
Really? That big of a gap?
I started in 2006.
That's wild.
From 88. I don't know how many years that is.
Oh, that is a really wild
years.
origin story. I'd never heard that before, dude.
Nobody has.
And did you recall what you said?
I remember tripping nuts. I remember the crowd going crazy. I remember that Robin Wilson was the president of Chico State at that time, and I had read that in World War II he flew, or it was Korean War, whatever war it was, he flew, I think it was World War II, he flew reconnaissance missions to Germany specifically for brainwash, like to see what the Germans were doing to their patients, the Jews or whoever, Romanians, whatever, and he would bring that back to America for like Operation Paper. Who knows? And then his daughter was a Earth Firster, like a real Edward Abbey Earth Firster person. And so I'm sure I did. I was probably said that, and then I'm like, there's a sniper bullet on me, and like lay down dead. And, you know what I mean? I was like kinetic,
Wow.
very kinetic. I've learned to kind of like bring it in.
Do you do acid before going on stage anymore? Or
I thought I had to back then, and so every time I would host I started
Because
getting
you
into
won.
hosting. I just thought you were supposed to. Yeah.
But has that stopped? Or
I,
are you on acid right now?
you know, they say that, you know, you do it enough times and your life's just one big flashback. So what would I compare it to, you know?
Oh,
Show me a
man.
normal brain.
So, watching this story, one of the questions that popped in my head: do you consider yourself a prankster or an activist, or some kind of combination? How do you view what you're running for mayor 5 times? How do you
Yeah.
view it?
You know, it's interesting because as you will know, Aaron, I'm a journalist.
Yes.
And I'm often have to take a artist, music, or whoever, and kind of pigeonhole them and be like, they're like this.
Mhm.
They're like if, you know, Tom Petty and Miles Davis had a baby, you know, like these horrible music journalism things that I'll stoop to every now and then, but I try to do the best I can. But putting any artist into a category, like even like an activist. Am I an activist? I mean, no, I'm not. God damn, I just blanked on his name. I'm not Kamau Bell. You know what I mean? Kamau Bell's on the street. He's on the street all the time. That's what in my mind is an activist. You know, someone's out there.
Right.
He's still getting signatures. You know, he has he's using his platform and his voice to educate and change minds. I mean, do I do that? Not really. No. I don't do that. At the time, it was the 90s, and I just felt like, I mean, I fell in love with Chico when I moved here. At that time, it was the swan song of Chico, 87, 88, 89 through the 90s, but it was the end of the party school, the number one party school in America.
Mm-hmm.
But I caught the end. I caught St. Patty's Day, 10,000 students downtown at 5 a.m., bands at 6 a.m., people driving on the sidewalk. Like, I caught the end of fraternities on their wall having posters of John Belushi and Bob Marley. I caught the end of that, you know, it was the beginning of Mother Hips. It was a little bit into the beginning of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And so these like fraternity keggers that the bands would play at, and I would give out my newspapers and they would rip them up and throw them at me. You know, were so much fun. I Huckleberry Finned my way into the last town of America that was still kind of like what you hear about, like Animal House, you know?
Yeah.
And so there was 150 bands in town, so whatever gene I have, you know, that's maybe hereditary to organize this kind of thing and just put on shows to be that guy, everything fell together. And so I wasn't trying to be anything. I was like, what else can I do? I could run for mayor. I could have a pirate radio station. I could have a newspaper. I could have a concert series. I could have a festival. This is amazing.
But I mean, part of you did it because it was funny, and part of you did it because it might have some effective change, right?
No, not at all. I mean, it's just today I was reflecting, which is a new thing, and I was thinking like, wow, you know, I really threw my life away. Like, there are people who made career choices in their 20s and are retiring, or grandparents. They're all my friends, because I'm 63. Grandparents or whatever, they're retiring, everyone's retiring, but they're done. I'm like, I'm not done. I don't think I got there yet.
You haven't started?
That's
Yeah,
good.
I feel like I'm on my way.
All right.
The movie's coming out. That's
Yeah.
my new thing.
Yeah.
I always got to have a new thing, but I already know what I want to do after the movie.
What?
So I just have this burning desire to go to LA and rent a theater and do Jesus Christ Superstar,
Whoa.
like direct it, like a musical.
Okay.
And but get different comedians to sing the songs,
Oh my God.
and actors and stuff, and have it be really simplistic set, maybe projection. I don't know. That's what I've been thinking about,
That's wow.
because I love the music. The music.
Yes, I love that.
Best.
But could you explain why you ran for mayor 5 times?
Yeah. Here's yes. Nothing altruistic, like you were saying, completely self-aggrandizing. because the things I just mentioned, like the concerts. DNA, what is your position on, the Green Line? Oh, I got a festival coming up. I would just use it to talk about what I had going on. I got free publicity. Mm-hmm. And then I was, my magazines were whatever, if you want to use anarchistic, they were anti our government that we had, my early zines that I put out. And I definitely felt like, and I was correct, that our country was veering off course. Mm-hmm. And it felt like, we had, but it also felt like great change was in the air because this was the beginning of like computers. And I remember back in the early days when it was like the cyber freaks, like we were going to use the computers to take over. It was going to be revolution, it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah. But
there was a lot of excitement at the end of the 90s. So I just kept doing what I was doing, and I constantly fell forward to the next thing. I never enjoyed what I was doing. I never took a moment to be like, oh, it was always to the next compulsively. You can ask the ex-wives. It was always, there was,
Did you consider it a real possibility that you could win at any point?
Yeah. Which one? I don't know which one it was, but I had momentum, because it took a little, the first time, with the dreadlocks and drinking red wine during the city council meetings, I was like really barefoot in it. But but as I paid more attention and as I was saying in that story, when I started putting the pieces together of, there should be campaign finance reform. This is ridiculous. These guys get this like dark money even back then, and then they're beholden, it's that whole Mark Twain thing of a turtle doesn't get on a fence without a whole lot of help. Like these guys that don't become city council members, they have the backing and they have people that want something out of them. And I started to understand like viscerally like politics. And then what was it, every 2 to 4 years? It was just fun. It was fun to do, Mm-hmm.
What would you have done if you won? What would you have done if you won?
Back then?
Yeah.
I was on the board of directors for the Blue Room Theater for a dozen years, and I was a terrible board member. Like when it actually came down to doing work, I could care less about that, and so I was just there for the donuts. And so I feel now I probably have a better skill set and coping mechanisms to actually do the work. Not that I want to, but back then I probably would have been, I don't know, who knows? I don't know. Probably would have got shot. He would have been great. Well, we never know. We don't know. He got taken out too early.
And so the Nudist for Nader in 2000, was that your fifth run? Was that the end of your run?
2000, yeah. I think there might have been one. There might have been one more. No, there was one. There was definitely one more.
Oh.
So,
because it's every 4 years. Is that true? Every 2 years. I don't know.
Chico's politics.
The one with Ralph Nader was amazing. It was the El Rey Theater, which is a pretty big theater, like 800 seats, and it was me, and it was Code Pink. What's her name? She's an activist, and then the star of the show, Ralph Nader, and I was wearing this amazing green sharkskin suit. I'd cut off my dreadlocks because it was in the year 2000, and people were like, you make DNA. It makes more sense now. What's different? I'm like, I cut my hair. They're like, yeah, that's it. And then then all the Rastas I knew, I'd be like, hey, one love. And they're like, nope. I'm like, no, because I cut my dreads. I'm not part of any community.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
you should have handed them out.
I have them still.
The comedian Ben Rice.
Yeah. Love Ben.
When I was telling him that you were doing our show and he couldn't make it, but he's like, oh, I'm going to be in that story. There's going to be a part that I did in that story, which there wasn't, but do you know what he's talking about? Was that part of?
No idea.
Was he just on acid?
Yeah. I don't know. I knew Ben as Well, let's not get into it. But the most notorious thing with Ben Rice is that at a Festivus that happened in town that I agreed to be a part of, it was like a leg wrestling. You know that one where you lay down and you lock legs?
Right.
With Ben Rice, and I agreed to it, and he almost split me in half.
Ooh.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. It was almost like a spatchcock.
He spatchcocked you.
He almost spatchcocked me. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Now, you said you didn't really enjoy this stuff at the time when you were doing it.
True.
But how does it feel telling the story and thinking back? Do you have fond memories of this time period?
Memories? During my time in Chico, I produced 3,000 shows, including I did the concerts in the park every week for 14 years, and I put on 5 these festivals, Nowhere by Nowhere. I don't know if you did any one of those, but it was 150 bands in 3 days, and film festival, which was a real shame, and then art show, guitar expo. I mean, I was just, it was also Napster money back then. The bubble hadn't popped, so I was getting checks from Napster and GarageBand and some other things that went away. And so my thing, because I'm bad with money, is I just spent all the money on billboards and performers, and so I just it was just a magical time, And I also will wrestle anyone to the mat. I don't really want to wrestle, It's that impetigo. That's why I quit the team back in high school. That rash. It's like once I saw no.
So you're able to enjoy the experiences that you remember that you had a hard time enjoying while they happened.
I don't know, man. I'm not much for. I never registered happiness or really, unless I was on drugs. But but regular life, I never really. I'm just beginning to appreciate things.
Just now?
Yeah, no, recently, recently in the last year.
And so you're enjoying your movie, right? You're enjoying that process.
I'm enjoying the process. Yeah, it's very exciting. We just introduced one of our stars in the movie on our Facebook event page, whatever thing today, and the van. 1966 microbus, 13 window, 1776 cc's. It was very cool. The windows open up like that.
Oh my God.
And what I had forgotten, because I had driven microbuses across the country 13 times, was how crazy that was. Because microbuses should not be driven across the country, at 45 miles an hour up the Rockies.
I've driven a Volkswagen bus across the country half a time.
To one coast.
I went from one coast to the other, and then it blew up.
Yes,
I took Greyhound home.
I had 5 different ones, and the one thing I forgot as I was driving this bus around, people stop and wave.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And doing this at each other, doing the peace signs at when you see another Volkswagen bus driver.
Yeah.
And is that a good thing?
That people stop. I mean, it put smiles on people. There's something about it. It's like a shaggy dog. Like people see the VW and like, yeah, cool.
It's my favorite car.
And if VW's listening, I will take it as a sponsor and drive your new weird one around.
Do you feel like what you learned from running for mayor made you feel more cynical about our government, our political process? So
again, I just have troubles with terms like cynical. Like, for what I was saying in those newspapers, the Ball's Edge, that was our first zine.
Yeah,
the Ball's Edge, because again, dreadlocks, hippie, acid. The Earth is a ball, and we stand on the edge, the Ball's Edge.
Yeah.
But talking about the war back then and the Persian Gulf War and the war on oil, and it was so apparent to me. It isn't a matter of truths. That's the truth. We have war for oil, and that the system is corrupt, and the military-industrial complex is out of control, and we've armed the entire world, and CIA, all that. Everything I said I know back then, I still believe. Does that make me cynical? I mean, sometimes I get depressed when I see how things are going. I'm like, ooh, that was a bad day.
What I mean is, was it a learning process in things that maybe weren't very positive? Okay,
let me just start with, I got caught in some thread today, I think on Threads, how ironic, about people arguing about what's ADHD and what's not, and people use it as some banner, something, everyone's got it and no one's diagnosed.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with extreme ADHD and APD. And those two things have guided my life in an undiagnosed way. And I never had any verbal handles on it until the last couple of years, and reading Steve Silberman's Neurotribes and going through this diagnosis process. I'm able to talk about stuff more, but I was never able to reflect. I didn't know. I was just doing what I was doing, man. It was the 90s, man. Driving my van cross country, seeing the Grateful Dead. Jerry was still alive. I mean, life was good. It was an adventure. Mm-hmm. You know, I was having adventures, and, you know, I didn't make it through grad school. I handed in my thesis, which was kind of the inception of the movie that comes out in June. And it was a failed thesis in the sense that he said, my graduate advisor, Robert Greenway, he said to me, "You'd be happier on Grateful Dead tour." And I'm like, hell yeah. And so I left my VW and my girlfriend, future wife, future ex-wife. And, you know, I is that bad? I don't know. I could have been an accountant. I mean, I'm sure there were accountants on Dead Tour. What I'm saying is, like, I made my choices. I don't think I reflected a lot on them. Mm-hmm. You know, I think I'm a better person now than I was then. Politically, I think that we need to go in a completely new direction. Like, whatever it is. I don't know what it is. I can't really define it. Third party. Okay, let's do that. Let's have someone new that's not beholden to the lobbyists that Democrats and Republicans are both beholden to. Yeah. You know?
I used to be very much, like, more recently used to be very much like, we need to fix the system.
Yeah.
But I just think, like, with Trump, and especially the second Trump, I don't know how that even works at this point. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just gone so bad.
Yeah.
Now that we know the system can go there, it's kind of hard to have faith in the system.
Yeah, true. There needs to be a better guardrails, or any guardrails.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, I am a fan of Timothy Leary and Robert Anton Wilson and Terrence McKenna, and a lot of those guys talk about, they predicted that we're going to be in an extremely chaotic time, which we are, and that the great thing about that is, in a chaotic time, there's novelty. That things that couldn't happen any other time can happen because it's a chaotic time. And I do a joke about it, Northern Lights, but that's neither here nor there. But it's like, we don't know what it is, because, like, climate change is peaking. You know, the predictive models are failing. AI, we don't quite know what's happening with that. Hollywood, what's a summer blockbuster? You know, like, in every field, it's like, our old model doesn't work, so what's the new model?
Yeah.
And I think it'll be some 15-year-old, and, you know, the middle of, probably not Iowa, but, you know, somewhere, maybe in, you know, Sri Lanka, who just, like, comes up with some new algorithm that deactivates every nuclear missile in the world. I don't know. Possible. Anything's possible.
Yeah, it's possibility. So we're pregnant with possibility now.
Pregnant with possibilities.
Because of chaos.
Yeah. Mary was pregnant with possibilities because of you know who.
The big guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, what you say at the end of the story.
Which makes Epstein, you put that with Epstein's Island, it's a straight line.
Are you saying Jesus visited Epstein's Island?
I'm saying that dudes with 13-year-old girls, I'll meet you in the bushes. I'm sending my archangel Michael. Hey, Mary, God wants to meet you in
Thank you. I'm glad he's saying it.
Yeah.
We're going to thrush in the rumble in the jungle. Literal wingman, because he's an angel.
So
your messaging is a little different than what it was last year. You wouldn't encourage people to partake of the system or try to change it from within?
I think you need to take care of yourself. You know, I think it's always good to take stock. Where are you? What are you doing? How are you spending your time? Who are you associating with? You know, consider your possibilities. You know, I think it's good to have a plan. I never had a plan, but I think it's good to have plans and options and thinking about ahead, the future, but also to be in the moment and take care of your body and your people immediately around you. And then, you know, the system, I don't know, the spaceship lands, what's the system? You know, I mean, that's the I'm not saying that's the thing, but I'm saying if there was ever a time a spaceship's going to land, it's like in
totally
Nowsville.
agree.
Spaceships, if you're listening.
They're always listening. You want to hear something fucked up?
Yes.
So I don't know if you're familiar with Amazon Prime, but if you're on Amazon Prime, that used to be free with no commercials, and now you got to pay extra to be ad free.
Yeah.
The commercial,
like $3.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
No, me neither.
And so I get the commercials, and on every commercial, whatever they're selling, there's a button that says push your remote control, and you can buy it.
Yeah, have you ever done that I did it on accident. I didn't even know you could do that. I just did it.
Yeah.
I was like trying to hit mute or something.
Right.
And then I got an email going, you want to buy this product, don't you?
So like the end of summer, I got eczema, and so I was talking to my wife about it, and then next couple of days, all my commercials on Amazon Prime were for eczema. Every commercial. Like Alexa, which we have, was fucking listening and filtering information to my TV so I could buy the thing. 15-year-old me would be so disappointed, that I have these listening devices.
How old did you say
Get
you
rid of
are?
that shit.
63.
All 63-year-olds are getting eczema ads. That don't matter what you said. You're just 63, buddy.
Don't listen to him.
Really? Is that a thing with age?
Well, the weirdest part I think watching the story was that it seemed like such a long time ago. The references you mentioned, the Sesame Street thing in there, and politics.
It's moving so fast.
It's and getting worse so fast too.
Yeah.
But also, I think the acceleration of the chaos, that there does feel more hope in the chaos now, I feel, to me, than there was back then.
Right, because when you hear about Project 2025, you're like, oh my God, do they have a 900-page playbook? But just like anything, when you actually do the plays, they don't work out.
Right.
And if the people doing them are kind of, actually not smart people, or they're like evil Steve Bannon people, it's never going to roll out.
Yeah.
Plus, they can't, the one thing in Project 2025, they couldn't measure the resistance. And then so there are people that argue is like, hey, this is how fascism is you think it can never happen, and then it happens faster than you think it could happen, which is what's going on right now. But it's Hunger Games, you know what I mean? It's the resistance. I'm gonna do it's gonna be a countrywide Olympics. We're gonna have different districts.
I know.
He said we're gonna have different districts. Like it's so dystopian, and I love science fiction.
Yeah.
So do they. Like the tech bros.
Yeah,
The
Musk
fuckers.
is a very what'd you call Tolkienian? No.
Yeah.
He's named, and Grok is from,
Yeah.
they ruin things.
They totally wrong. They got the
Grok
total
is
wrong message
Stranger in a
from.
Strange Land?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you have to go into like deep repose because things I can't emotionally regulate right now. It's a very ADHD thing.
Man, I used to identify people I was going to relate to because they would say, I grok that. And
Yeah.
I like you. We have this in common. And now he ruined Grok.
Yeah. It's
Son of
very,
a bitch.
I think that's why
He's done worse things.
But this is why young people like have their vernacular and they hold on to it so tight because they don't want it's going to be up on a t-shirt and ruined immediately. Right. Like we used to have, we could wear bell bottoms for quite a long time before it became like pushed down our throats,
Right.
But now it's just immediately, masticated and sold back to the masses.
6'7" became like a verbal meme in schools during the year. And then at the mall, like within a month, I saw 6'7" t-shirts. And I was like, some kid's going to buy that shirt thinking it's going to be his ticket in. And it's just
late.
him letting the world know that he's awful.
Oh, they do algorithms and all the whatever is trending in memes and TikTok.
Yeah.
It's all, I'm so depressed when I go on my phone anytime. But all the, I'm on Threads now. I feel like Threads is the last hope. Like,
Not Blue Sky?
No, I hate Blue Sky.
Okay.
Blue Sky is too yuppie. Threads is still the Wild West a little bit. Kathy Griffin holds court. Dana Gould
But it's owned
holds
by
court.
Meta.
I understand. See, that's the problem. So we're already in the beast of the belly of the beast.
Yeah.
So, and they're harvesting my data while I'm typing, and they're making connections between who's my friends. And then if you turn out to be an activist sir, you can't stop mentioning activism, then who's in your circle? We're in your circle. You know what I mean? And I'm giving them that. I had a joke that it wasn't really, but it was that it used to take so long for the CIA to train one person to be a Manchurian candidate, and now it's self-serve. You can go on and groom yourself if you watch the right videos and listen to Rogan.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, that's a really good
By
joke.
design. By Bannon designing QAnon and all that.
So back to hope and possibility.
Yeah, hope. Hope and, yeah. No, yeah. Hope and possibilities. Okay. What do you want to know?
What are you hopeful for?
Well, I don't want to blow smoke up your ass. I will say 1977, 15 years old, first acid trip. I knew at that trip, I knew I was going to move to California from New Jersey. I put a map next to my bed. I circled around Berkeley. I thought that's where I was going to end up, but I went and I got chased by cops out of Berkeley. And so I was like, maybe more north. And I knew I'd have adventures. I knew I would almost I was going to make it, whatever that meant. It was undefined at the time. And right when I made it, the world would end. That's what I always knew. And that's like a self-defeating, that's like, there's actually a term. It's like, I can't think of anything turning out good. It always has to turn out bad. It's called whatever it's called. But my movie opens in June.
All right.
It's going to make it. And then it'll be like,
Oh, thank God.
Thanks, Danny.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I opened
No,
the
thank
seals. Yeah.
We're
out.
sincere. We can't wait to get this done with.
See if Valhalla is real. Yeah, I believe I have total hope. It's the Jim Morrison thing. Yeah, they have the guns. We have the numbers. We have the numbers, and we also have guns. It was was it Ari Schaefer's thing about like the militia versus the military? Yes, they have us. Man, they got us by the coattails, with being able to track us and everything. But they can't control chaos. They can't control resistance. They can't control what that 15-year-old in Berlin is going to do with an algorithm he thinks up. And there's so many of us,
Right.
And it's like they want to take away education. Too late. They're burning the books. There's still the internet. They're trying to erase the internet. Internet is housed on different servers. You can't get rid of all the internet. It's like they keep, we're the fire and they keep trying to put us out, but we're popping up. It's like a Billy Joel song. Which is sad.
Yeah, and they also think that we're like them, and that's like their biggest mistake.
Yeah.
Because we're not.
They don't get it.
Yeah.
If you like what we do here at In a Nutshell Storytelling, you can support us by becoming a paid subscriber on our Substack at inanutshellstorytelling.com. We're a small artist-run creative business, and paid subscriptions directly help us to pay our storytellers, pay ourselves, and keep this whole scrappy, beautiful experiment going. And this is one of our favorite parts. We give a shout out on the podcast to new paid subscribers. First up, we got Jolene Levine.
Oh, thanks, Jolene.
Thank you, Jolene. Oh, Abigail.
Abigail,
Stop umbrella, lady.
Stop Umbrella. Check it out.
Abigail's got. Have you guys noticed Abigail has one hell of a smile?
Oh, she's charming as fuck.
People say people's smile lights up a room, and I'm like, that's a dumb expression. And then I met Abigail, and I was like, oh no, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
And Wendy Jordan,
Oh, our newest.
our newest
What's
subscriber.
up, Wendy?
Thank you, Wendy.
Shout out Wendy.
Everybody knows
Whoop,
it's Wendy.
Whoop, whoop.